we don't celebrate Halloween. We don't open the door, and we don't have candy. My entire town is like this, and you learn very quickly to do the same when you come here. I moved here at the tail end of summer, just as all the back-to-school commercials started. I lived in a city all my life, so when a job opened up in a branch of my company near a town I had my eye on, I jumped at the chance to get out of the noise and grime. My daughter wasn't nearly as thrilled at the idea of picking up and moving across the state. Perhaps I should have listened to her complaints a bit more, but I had a reason beyond what I told her. I found a nice 2-story home on a street that was perhaps 6 blocks from Main Street, where all the shops were. I could see the church, which sat atop a hill and overlooked the little town, from my porch. The more I looked around, the more it felt like a place trapped in a time warp. Even the internet was just about Stone Age. It took a week to move, and a while longer for my daughter and I to settle in. My new office was far smaller than my old place, but I was able to fit in well there, too. It seemed like everything would work out perfectly. Then we came to the beginning of October, and things took a stranger turn. My daughter, Samantha, came down from her room one evening while I flipped through channels. I happened upon an old Goosebumps episode and turned to her as she went to the kitchen. "You got plans for Halloween this year, Sam?" "With who?" "I'm the new girl, remember? No one wants to do anything with the new person." She came back into the room with a bowl of cereal. "This place is strange, Dad." She pointed towards the window with her spoon. "It's not so bad." She flopped down on the couch next to me. "It'll just take time to adjust. You'll be the same popular girl in a few months." She stared at me. "You have a very warped view of what my life was like." I laughed. "Maybe I do, but things will get better." "I sure hope so, but the kids here, it's like they don't know anything about Halloween. I asked about a dance, and they looked at me like I had a second head." "Well, did you?" "No, Dad, I'm being serious. I haven't even seen a store with decorations up. That's like end of September stuff, isn't it?" I shrugged. I'd noticed the same, but figured small-town stores were better than big box stores and not moving on to holidays 4 months beforehand. I wouldn't worry about it. It's a New England town. Halloween is like in the blood of the land. Not here. I was actually shushed today by a girl at the donut shop. "I told you to stop referring to them as bumpkins." She laughed. "I didn't. I just asked when they'll be doing their Halloween donuts." She shushed me and told me not to ask something like that again. Maybe the owners are super religious. Maybe. Sucks though. I like Halloween. I thought for a moment while she sat next to me watching the episode, and then an idea struck me. "Well, why don't we get the town jump-started? We can start decorating this weekend. How's that sound?" She turned to look at the windows and then shrugged. "I guess that could work." When the weekend came, we spent most of the morning hauling cardboard boxes up from the basement. I was just getting the last one out when I rounded the side of the house and saw a local police car parked at the curb. I heard Samantha's voice and hurried out. "What do you mean I have to take it down? What's wrong with it?" "It's obscene. We don't allow that kind of stuff here." You're insane. Miss, take it down, or I'll have to take you in and write you a ticket. When I came to the front yard, I found a deputy standing a few feet from the ladder that Samantha was on. She'd been hanging up a witch in one of the front windows. "Can I help you, officer?" I asked, and placed the box I carried down beside a bush. The deputy looked at me and glanced at Samantha once more before coming over, his hands resting on his belt. "You the homeowner?" "I am, yes. She's my daughter. What's the problem?" "I got a call about obscene decorations going up on this property." He looked me over and cocked an eyebrow. "I haven't seen you around before. You just move in?" "A few months ago, yeah," I said, and moved towards Samantha. "Could you tell me what exactly is obscene?" He motioned toward the witch and a few foam pumpkins that had tumbled out of a plastic bag. "Those things aren't allowed here." "Halloween decorations aren't allowed?" His face turned to anger and surprise, as if I just insulted his mother. "Do that again, and I'll haul you both in. Take down that garbage by nightfall, or you'll be in big trouble." I stood stunned as he stalked out of the yard and got into his car, slamming the door. His tires screeched as he took off down the little street. I watched him go and then turned to Samantha, who was still stood on the ladder. She stared after the car, a disbelieving look on her face. She came down. "That did just happen, right?" "I don't know. Maybe I hit my head in the basement." "Then I hit mine too." "Told you this place was weird," she said, and I nodded. "Yeah. Let me call the station and see if that guy is even a deputy." I left her outside and went into the house and looked for the phone book. I found it and looked for the number. To my surprise, I was told the same thing the deputy had said, only in a bit nicer tone. I went back out and told Samantha that we had to take it all down. We spent the afternoon doing so. I had never run into a place that had such a distaste for Halloween. It wasn't because the town was religious. The church was half empty come Sunday. But something had them all spooked. I decided to play along and tried my best to ignore the approaching holiday. Then, the night came where anywhere else the streets would be flooded with trick-or-treaters. Instead, the place was a ghost town. I was putting plates on the table as Samantha was perched on the chair by the window, staring out at the street. "No one has their lights on," she said, and turned to look at me. "Mom would be so annoyed by this." I laughed. "She'd probably drag us both out there. We'd spend most of the night knocking on doors just so she could annoy these people. She'd bring Halloween into this town kicking and screaming," she said, and hopped off the chair. Her face suddenly took on a serious look, and I felt my stomach drop. I'd been avoiding the question she was about to ask, but she wasn't going to let me anymore. Her mother had the same look. "Why'd you move us here, Dad?" I turned from the stove where I had dinner cooking. "Because a position opened up. So it wasn't to be closer to Mom's grave?" Sam asked and crossed her arms. I shrugged and didn't look up. "My wife grew up in this town until she was 18 and went off to college. When a heart attack took her life, her parents insisted that she be buried in this town. I didn't have the heart to tell them no, but it was hours away from where Sam and I lived. I told you, I wanted to get out of the city, I said, and felt my voice shake. Sam came over and hugged me. I turned to her and hugged her back, holding her as tightly as I could. I miss her too, you know, Sam said, and looked up to me. I know. I just wanted to be closer to her, I said. Sam pulled away and nodded. She wiped tears from her eyes with her sleeve. I'm sorry it's not working out. It's fine. I stopped by her grave yesterday on the way home from school. I was surprised. Sam had a lot of anger at her mother over her death. So much so that she didn't stay for the entire funeral. I didn't blame her. She was barely in her teens. I haven't gone yet. I flipped the grilled cheese I had on the stove. The bottoms were black. Her parents still leaving flowers? Sam shook her head. There was nothing on any of the graves. It looked like someone had cleaned everything up. I frowned. We'll take her some flowers tomorrow. Together. I dumped the grilled cheese sandwiches in the trash. Sam laughed at me as I turned back. How about we order pizza? No complaints here, she said as she went and got the phone. All the places were closed. I hung up on the last voicemail message and tossed the phone onto the couch. Looks like we'll be fending for ourselves still. There's a burger place out on Main Street that's open late. We could try there, Sam said as she got the keys from the hook beside the door. I'll drive. I can't wait until you get your license so I can just send you out to get stuff by yourself, I said as I grabbed my coat and we headed out the door. The sky was mostly thick with clouds, but the moon shined rays through them and gave the world an eerie glow. I turned to look at the house as I reached the car and paused. There was orange light coming from one of the windows. You put one of those pumpkins in your window? I looked at Sam over the car roof. Oh yeah. Must have missed that one, she said with a sly smile. I laughed as she got in the car. I took the front seat and we went off toward Main Street. It was like the end of the world had occurred. There were no cars on the street, and every single shop was dark. Every house was dark. Even the street and stoplights were off, which had to be illegal. But other than the moon, there was no light. We made it to the burger place and pulled into the parking lot. Maybe there's a power outage, Sam said as she stared through the windshield at the dark windows. She glanced at the clock and then at me. Or all our clocks are wrong. I checked my phone. It was only a little after 8. I looked around the area, getting the first chills of something being very wrong. Let's head home, Sam. We could try something out of town, Sam. I said we're going home. I said, and swallowed dryly. Something had always felt off here, but right then, every nerve was tingling, and my hair stood on the back of my neck. There was something I was missing, and I wanted to be somewhere other than a car when I realized what it was. I looked back at Sam, who was staring at me. her expression a mix of confusion and fear. "What's wrong?" "Home, Sam. Now." She shifted the car into reverse and backed out onto the main street. It took almost 10 minutes to get home. We pulled into the driveway, and I noticed that the front door was open. Sam saw it too. "You locked it, didn't you?" I thought for a moment, and was 99% sure I did. I undid my seatbelt and opened the car door. "Stay here. Keep the doors locked. If I'm not back in 5 minutes, go to the police station." "Dad." I squeezed her hand. "Do as I say." She nodded, and I got out of the car and started up the walk. I entered the front door and reached for the light beside the door, but couldn't find it. I took out my cell phone and used the flashlight app, and gasped. The entire living room was in shambles. The lights were knocked over, and the couch was turned over with the TV laying on top of it. I cursed and started into the room. In the small beam of light, I couldn't see anything missing, just damaged. Stopping in the middle of the room, I sighed, and then froze in place. A sound of sobbing came from upstairs. A large part of me wanted to run back to the car and go to the police, but I couldn't do that if someone was hurt. Instead, I tried 911 and moved to the closet where Sam had her softball bat. Just a busy signal. God damn it. I took up the bat and started up the stairs. The sobbing was coming from the front of the house where Sam's room was. I slowly made my way down the hall and paused outside her room. The door was open just a crack, and using the bat, I pushed it farther. The silhouette of a woman on Sam's bed showed. She was bent over, clutching something to her chest. I took a small step into the room and tried my best to stay quiet until I knew what I was dealing with. She didn't notice. I took another, and then froze when a loud bang came from downstairs. "Dad!" Sam screamed, and I stumbled back against the wall as the silhouette's head darted up to look at me. I couldn't make out much of her face, other than the skin looked almost like paper on her gaunt features. She bared her teeth and snarled as she let go of one of Sam's stuffed animals. "Dad, they're trying to get in. Dad!" I struggled to get out the door, the bat smacking against the door jamb. The woman scrambled across the bed, a raspy laugh escaping her. I tried to close the door, but she was at it before I could manage. I moved to the side as she rushed out of the room. She slammed into the wall, buckling the drywall and causing pictures to tumble to the floor. I rolled backwards and slid down the stairs. Sam stood against the front door. Windows shattered, and the laughing became louder from those outside. I hopped the last few steps and turned to see the woman on the landing. She stomped down the steps slowly, her black gown almost like ink in the darkness. Hands grabbed at me, and I looked back to see Sam kneeling beside me, her phone out with her flashlight on. She shined it on the woman on the steps, and I felt my heart stop. She had only one eye, which looked like milk under glass, but it wasn't the eye that held my attention, or the missing patches of skin and strings of hair. It was her face, her clothes, the ring that glinted on her finger. "Karen?" I said slowly, and saw the slightest hint of recognition before it disappeared into a fit of rusty laughter. "Who? That can't be," Sam said, and stood. She walked towards the woman. I struggled to my feet and grabbed her by the waist before she could make it more than a couple of steps. The woman that looked like my dead wife rushed after us. I felt her nails rake across my neck and down my back, and I tumbled over. Sam landed beside me. My dead wife was on me before I could move. The air coming from her mouth and nose, the stench of death. I caught her wrists and felt the skin break under my grip and cover my hands in dust. "Run, Sam! Get to the basement! Lock the door!" I shouted as teeth snapped inches away from my face. "But, go!" She took off towards the kitchen. More windows broke. Footsteps sounded from everywhere in the room. But I couldn't think about it too much. I was too focused on the dead woman in front of me who was trying to claw my eyes out. "Karen, stop!" She growled at me and renewed her struggle to hurt me. "How are you here? You're dead. You've been dead for years. Why are you trying to hurt us?" Rusty laughter came again, but she relaxed a little. That recognition I saw before returned, and she canted her head at me. She snarled and looked around the room. The name came drawn out and almost in an echo. She stood and staggered toward the kitchen, shoving aside the others who had entered through the windows. The basement door opened, and Sam screamed. I rushed into the kitchen and shoved Karen back into the counter. I got into the basement and slammed the door behind me and held on to the knob. Karen screamed from the other side. Her hands thumped on the door. The light was on, and I turned to see Sam at the foot of the stairs. She held my gun on me, and then slowly lowered it. "What the hell is going on, Dad? That was Mom." "Go get me a hammer and nails, quickly." She ran off, and I sat down on the stairs, holding the door and hoping it would hold against Karen's onslaught. She had started to sob again by the time Sam brought me the hammer and nails. It was painful to listen to, but the hammering at least drowned it out for a time. Sam and I sat in the basement and listened as what sounded like hundreds of dead walked around above us. Sam somehow fell asleep in my arms, but I couldn't even close my eyes, not with my dead wife sobbing above me. By the time the sun came through the small basement windows, all sound above us disappeared. I gently laid Sam down on the rug and went to the basement doors that led outside. The sun was bright and the air chilly as I stepped out. The yard was pitted with footprints. The back of the house looked like a bomb had gone off inside. All the windows were broken, wood siding laid on the ground in pieces. I walked to the front to find more of the same. I stood there, heart in my throat, and not sure what to do. "You were warned." I turned to see the deputy from the beginning of the month getting out of his car. "I told you not to have that crap up." I stalked over. Warned of what? You didn't tell me anything like this would happen. And why the hell was 911 not working last night? Because we don't go out on Halloween. We don't even turn on our lights for fear of calling them. It's not the town's fault that you wouldn't listen. You could have told us. He smiled. You wouldn't have believed me anyway. The warning should have been enough. I wanted to hit him, but somehow managed to restrain myself. My dead wife was here. A solemn expression came over him. You had family buried here. He removed his hat. I'm sorry you had to see them like that. He looked back to the house and took a few steps onto the lawn. Any inside? You heard any of them? Never got the chance. We hid in the basement. He nodded. Lucky then. Last knew people that didn't listen, we found dead in their beds. Just what the hell happened last night? I don't know the particulars. You'll have to talk to the librarians or some such, but it's a time that spirits aren't bound no more. The dead can walk. He shrugged. Most places think that the decorations and masks are to keep the spirits at bay. Not around here. They're drawn to anything relating to the holiday, which is why we don't have Halloween here. He went back to his car. He turned slowly once he reached it and looked at me. You need food or help cleaning up? Stop on by the church. You've at least learned your lesson, which means you're part of this town, and we take care of our own. He got in and sped off. I turned back to the house and could see Sam's little foam pumpkin still in the window, the grin on its face almost mocking. I went inside and tore it from the window and trashed it. It's almost time now for another Halloween, and I'll let this one go by just as I have all the others, as just another fall day. My memories of the holiday are no longer laughter or children having fun, but rather the decomposing face of my dead wife and her sobs. That's why this town and I don't do Halloween.